just about to start, and suddenly the dogs are going. Hello everyone. Yes, this is the first live stream on this channel. Exciting things. So yeah, we got quite a heavy topic tonight, but I just want to talk quickly about why I'm doing this. And I realise I have my computer audio. That is not very professional of me. Not very professional at all. New things, as I say. But yes, why am I doing this? Why the sudden change? Why am I doing live stuff as well as scripted videos? Because the scripted videos are still coming out. I got a video coming out this weekend about the abortion debate, so should be interesting. Yes. Anyway, what's going on? Well, we've got something called summer coming in India. It's going to be incredibly hot. That's why this is usually the rig that I put the green screen on. That's been packed away because with this sort of broadcast, I only need 2 lights. With green screen, I need 4 lights, and they're massive light bulbs. They're about the size of this bottle. I'm not even joking. One time I will show you them, and they're just constantly producing heat. It gets hell in the summer. I was like, okay, well, I can switch to audio, but I want to make sure I'm not switching to audio just to escape, gender dysphoria sort of thing. I've wanted to do shows for a while like this, not live debates, not discussions or anything like that, because I still see issues with that. But I want to do live shows like this, and the reason for that is there are very often topics that I want to cover that come past, but I don't quite have the time to do a fully planned, video essay with all of the trimmings on it. And I feel like this sort of style of when I see something I want to touch on, I make some basic notes, do some basic research, and discuss it here. I thought that's a good compromise. We can do that, and things can be, well, different. Just want to say hello to everyone in the audience. I feel like my hair is looking nice today. It's looking really nice. I've been having some rough time with my hair recently, but it's looking nice this night. I can be thankful for the small things. So yeah, anyway, today's topic, we are covering an event that took place at the end of last month. I wanted to talk about this at the time in that actual video, but Graham Linehan kind of happened. You might have heard of it. It was kind of a thing the last few weeks. And I never got time to get round to it, and I could just ignore it, but I feel it's kind of indicative of where we are in the UK at the moment, because it's definitely worth covering. So, anyway, let's get to the article we'll be using. Down in the description, you will see a series of references. The first one is the Pink News article. I'll mostly be going over because it contains some quotes, etc. And I just want to, use it sort of a skeleton to work from. In future videos, I might not do that. All of this remains to be seen. I think we're kind of at the stage where we're just starting to feel things out a little bit. And the train says hi. Wonderful. So yes, if you've got any advice on things I could do better. I was debating whether or not I should show the article on screen as I'm reading out, but I thought it's probably easier for you guys to open it yourself and, view it that way as I read through it. So yes, but if you think otherwise, do let me know in the chat, as it were, or the comments if you're coming to this a little bit later. So anyway, the article was titled Anti-LGBT plus priest tells MPs that sex education leads to sex abuse and anal cancer, and no one stopped her. Written by Lily Wakefield, published by Pink News, which, if you don't know, is a UK-based LGBT plus newspaper. They were also one of the one of the institutions threatened by Graham Linehan over, his support for child torture. They took down their article, and that's kind of what got us all worked up and worried, because it's like, they're a big paper, they're taking down the article, we're not a big paper, what should we do? Anyway, as the headline would suggest, the groups invited, because it wasn't just this one priest, it was a couple of groups and various key speakers, They are all anti-SRE, which is sex and relationship education, and anti-LGBT+. Basic content warning for this: there's of course medical and sexual themes relating to education and educational purposes. So yeah, with that I think we shall continue. The article starts by reading, quote, "An Anglican priest recently spoke in the House of Commons to say that LGBT inclusive relationship and sex education leads to child-on-child sexual abuse and oral and anal cancers. Linda Rose, who has previously said that LGBT inclusive education is state-sponsored abuse and comparable to Nazism, was invited to speak at a parliamentary briefing on February the 26th by MP Jeffrey Donaldson, the DUP's leader in the House of Commons. The parliamentary briefing was organised by the Lords and Commons Family and Child Protection Group, which previously supported Section 28 banning schools from promoting homosexuality." A lot to unpack there, especially for my non-native, I'm not currently in the UK either, but for non-British people. The DUP, or the Democratic Unionist Party, they're just British nationalist and far-right populist party in Northern Ireland. As for Section 28, this was a draconian bill put into effect on the 24th of May 1988 under Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. It stated that a local authority shall not intentionally promote homosexuality or publish material with the intention of promoting homosexuality, or promote the teaching in any maintained school of the acceptability of homosexuality as a pretended family relationship. So that's what they're on about when they talk about Section 28. It was repealed on the 21st of June on the turn of millennium. Not that it helped a whole lot, because a lot of the teachers still held on to the view that it was still illegal to talk about it, and even those aware of the facts that it was now legal to talk about it, when they did talk about it, they could still be punished for it, even though it was allowed. Because sadly, we just live in a world where acknowledging that LGBT plus people exist is the gay agenda, more recently the trans agenda, but both can still be targeted, as seen in Birmingham, in Parkfield and Anderton primary schools. I've covered them previously on the channel before. All of this is about to change though, as the article elaborates. Quote, "In September 2020, LGBT inclusive relationship education will become mandatory in UK primary schools, and LGBT inclusive relationships and sex education will become mandatory in UK secondary schools." Now, of course, this is happening after a long time. 20 years ago, all of this stuff was banned in UK schools. We fought to have that ban lifted. That is a collective we of the LGBT plus community, not me. I was born in 1994. So that was 20 years ago. Since then, there's been an extensive push to put into place comprehensive and LGBT plus inclusive sex and relationship education, because it's important for everyone on every level. Because even if a child isn't LGBT plus themselves, they likely have, like I say, they will mathematically have LGBT plus family members. They'll certainly come into contact with LGBT plus people, and they need to learn the basics about them, but most importantly, how to respect them. And including them in this education is a way to do that. I see we have just received a $20 super chat. Yes, I'm still getting used to the terminology. From Jadis Tucker. You are amazing. Thank you very much. I'm just quickly checking the chat every now and then, but mostly reading the article, of course. This is only happening after very extensive review, and it's got the bigots terrified. The whole reason people started kicking up a stink about Parkfield and then later Anderton was because this is coming along. It was supposed to come into effect last year, in 2019, but it got postponed because of logistical problems. They heard about this. They went checked like what their students are learning at the moment, found out about the No Outsiders program, and decided, we can't deal with this. Our children are being taught to respect LGBT plus people, along with disabled people, people with adoptive parents, people with different religious beliefs, ethnicities, etc. So, yes, as the article continues, quote, Rose told those in attendance that inclusive relationship and sex education, RSE, will mean that children are being subjected from age 3 to the messages that they can change their gender if they want, and that they may be homosexual because they have a best friend of the same sex. It's a social experiment. It's abuse. She added that puberty blockers are being prescribed whole scale to children seeking gender reassignment, that there was a massive increase in child and child sex abuse cases resulting from too much information too soon, and that the rise in oral and anal cancers directly results from the normalization and promotion of these kinds of sex in young people. I thought I was reading that wrong. I was reading that correct. Linda Rose was joined by other anti-LGBT plus speakers in the House of Commons on inclusive sex education. Linda Rose, who is the director of an anti-abortion pressure group which describes same-sex marriage as a neo-pagan battle for supremacy that will rewrite the Christian faith, was not the only person to speak during the parliamentary briefing. Again, a lot to unpack here. Kudos to the author. They're doing a wonderful job here in covering a lot of stuff because this went on for a while. There is no basis for the assertion that children are being prescribed puberty blockers without proper support, or that SRE has resulted in an increase on child and child sex abuse. That is pure fabrication. Dealing with the puberty blockers thing, puberty blockers come from gender identity clinics. Now here's the thing. The majority of children referred to these clinics desist before receiving any further support. Why? Well, because professionals, being their profession, actually have the capacity to help and support young people to ensure that the ones who go on to even delay puberty, not begin medical transitioning, because puberty blockers are not medically transitioning. It's not hormone replacement therapy, which is a completely different bag. That's what will actually change different secondary sexual characteristics about you as a person. Puberty blockers just delay some of the more extreme aspects of puberty, because they don't prescribe at the start of puberty, they prescribe it during TANF stage 2 to 3, which is roughly 12 years of age, up to 4 years, giving the then teenager time to mature and make an informed decision with the help of professionals. However, they're so good at doing their job before it reaches the stage of medicalization of any sort, before puberty blockers are prescribed, that 100% of those who go onto puberty blockers persist further on. Meanwhile, out of those originally sent to said clinics, 80% plus desist because they are not transgender and there is no conspiracy to force them to transition, as this article so naively believes. 1 second. Anyway, yes, neo-pagan battle for supremacy. That is definitely a good punk name, Orion Cooper. It is really, some of the stuff we will get into later is really off the wall. Like, the source that this person's getting their claims from, I'll talk a bit further in a bit. You should see the way they talk about little girls. Oh, it is terrifying. It is terrifying. Anyway, continuing. As for the increase in child-on-child sex abuse, well, first of all, it's not necessarily actually an increase in the abuse. You see, the thing about early sex and relationship education is it didn't teach consent that well. That's why it just used to be sex education. Now it's sex and relationship education because the relationship part puts a focus on respecting partners, respecting boundaries, respecting consent. And that's an important fact to teach. And sadly, as you teach people about consent and boundaries, more and more people begin to realize that they were actually sexually assaulted at various parts in their life. Anytime a big anti-rape campaign is launched, the rates of reported sexual assault spike. Now, does that mean campaigns against sexual violence increase the number of sexual assaults? No. It informs people that this was wrong. You possibly need help. Therefore, document it. It increases rates of reporting. But that's being taken in a very opportunistic manner, and it's being used to propagate fear-mongering. There's been no demonstration that sex and relationship education causes child-on-child sex abuse. There's also no evidence that sex and relationship education results in the rise of oral or anal cancers. Again, this could be down to improvements in diagnosis methods. It could be any number of things. What this group likes to do is take random statistics showing increases, which could be down to any number of things, and it likes to assert that this is definitively, causatively, the result of SRE. I know this because there was also a video that was put out there before all this went ahead to try and raise awareness of it by the Values Foundation, which is a similar sort of organization. If you're in America, these groups are like our Heritage Foundation. They propagate misinformation and all that. So yes, anyway, they put out a trailer making people aware of what was going on, the fact that MPs were allowing these bigots to speak at this event, so tune in, help us, support us, get the lie out there. And in that video it made 3 different claims. Claim 1, skyrocketing rates of teenage STIs. Claim 2, the highest rate of teenage pregnancy in Western Europe. Claim 3, 1/3 of sexual abuse is committed by other children. It sounds like they share the same sort of arguments here. Now, when it came to the sexual abuses committed by other children, that doesn't show an increase. All they did is quote some crime statistics and show that sexual abuse of children is a thing. To make the jump to, therefore, sex and relationship education has caused it, it doesn't follow. Just like the skyrocketing rates of teenage STIs. Again, methods of diagnosing are increasing. One aspect of sex and relationship education is even those not directly receiving the education can be made more aware of things as it becomes more prevalent in discussion with that age group. And this can result to people who've caught the disease because of lack of sex and relationship education getting tested, discovering, and increasing the overall prevalence. It could also be the result of things such as changes in climate. If things are getting drier and hotter, that can impact certain diseases. Same with going the other way. Changes in viral or bacterial strains, fungal as well. Because, hey, we've got this interconnected world and we're starting to get superbugs now. So that's fun. It could be any number of things. But they take basic statistics showing an increase in STI rates and they say that's the result of sex and relationship education. When, for all we know, sex and relationship education is the only reason those numbers are as low as they are. It would be kind of like an anti-vaxxer arguing that, the prevalence of measles proves that vaccines cause measles, sort of thing. It would be absolutely ridiculous, but that's the thing about bigotry. It doesn't have to be rational. The only abuse in which people such as Linda Ross partake in is when they target LGBT plus youth or the children of LGBT plus adults. That's the only abuse that's taking place here. Notice the comparison to Nazis. That's of course been very popular recently with Graham Linehan, who likes to talk about that. And this person is an out-and-out anti-LGBT plus bigot, but they're all cut from the same cloth. They're all making the same arguments. They're all supporting one another. It is a circle jerk. Thanks to Adoniel H for their $1.99 donation. Thank you very much. Lovely heart. I'm just reading through. Orion Cooper. Same thing happened in Sweden. Swedish government expanded the definition of rape to include previously unreported forms of rape, and now right-wingers say Sweden is in a rape crisis. Yeah, that happens quite a lot. Trans gamer got a wrench. Yeah, Kato Lee, how do they even jump to the conclusion of increased child sexual abuse? They just do that because that's their job. Their job is to go mining for anything that can sort of be used in this way and to throw it out there. Again, I have my own experience of childhood sexual abuse. I didn't report it at the time because as a child I had no idea what consent was, what sexual assault was. Only as I got a greater understanding and I tore down barriers involved did I actually realize this was wrong. This was sexual abuse. It wasn't a game like the person who did it pretended. So yeah, it's this sort of very opportunistic vulture-like behaviour towards the survivors of sexual abuse that really disgusts me, because ultimately this isn't going to decrease. So what they're effectively doing is demanding that young people, be stripped of the resources to know that what happened to them was wrong, and to bring that to people's attention and, go ahead and actually report it and get help. That's what they are fighting to do away with. That this isn't just, it's less knowledge. It's actively harming the people they are pretending to care about. So yes, anyway, the report that it seems a lot of these claims are coming from, the aforementioned Values Foundation, has reference for the first two claims, so the ones about STIs and pregnancy, comes from the Relationships and Sex Education, The Way Forward by the Justice Foundation, which sounds very suave, it sounds very fancy, it sounds like a legitimate report, but it isn't. They're the ones that make the claims about increasing STIs, therefore it's SRE's fault. No actual causal link there, no basis for the claims. You should also read what they state here about condoms. I'm going to actually just read it out. Quote, specifics. Children are commonly told that if they use a condom, they will be protected against both unwanted pregnancy and infection. Both statements are untrue. Condoms are claimed to give 98% protection against pregnancy when used by experts. But children are very far from being experts. And that fact, combined with the relatively high failure rate of condoms, means pregnancy prevention is actually closer to 89%. So they're angry that rather than 0%, it's 89%, which is still pretty high. Children are going to be sexually active, so 89%, It's definitely better than 0. But it's just like the unbelievable nerve here is the idea that children aren't receiving enough education to teach them how to use condoms, because reminder, not every child in the UK is receiving proper, comprehensive sex and relationship education. There are exclusions in religious schools, and do you want to make a bet of how much, what percentage of the student population is in said religious schools? So, like, you include those in the stats, the thing that you have caused by your religious exemption from these sort of teachings, as evidence that they're not as effective as claimed. The fact is, condoms have a 98% protection rate against pregnancy if used properly. Now, the way to increase 89% to 98% is further education. Imagine that, teaching young people how to actually use condoms properly. But logic and reasoning does not care. It does not qualify here. Now, I've linked a few studies in the description, which I suggest you go over. Well, the first one is a study, but it's more of a report of studies. It came out in 2009, and it looked into abstinence versus comprehensive sex and relationship education in the US, along with the third one, which was published in 2017. The third one was published in the Journal of Law Medicine subsection. Again, also looked at abstinence versus comprehensive sex education. This time, it came down a lot heavier on the abstinence aspect. And then the fourth one I linked down below deals with global education of sex and relationship education and its impact on HIV. And all of them across the board are incredibly damning. It's not just the effectiveness of SRE. The first one, which was the Comprehensive Sex Education Research and Results by Advocates for Youth, pointed out the fact that all evidence shows that, these programs, the ones that do anything, delay sexual initiation. 40% of the ones they looked into of comprehensive sex education delayed sexual initiation, reduced the number of sexual partners, or increased condom or contraceptive use. 30% reduced the frequency of sex, including a return to abstinence. Funny that. 60% reduced unprotected sex. There were no shown negatives to these studies, so if they didn't have an effect that was significant, they were just on the values measured, they didn't have an impact. That does not necessarily mean they didn't have a positive impact, because there are certain things that aren't measured. For example, the acceptance of LGBT plus people, that wasn't measured. However, as they go on to note, no abstinence-only program has yet been proven through rigorous evaluation to help youth delay sex for a significant period of time, help youth decrease their number of sex partners, or reduce STI or pregnancy rates among teens. Isn't it funny? Comprehensive sex education can demonstrate that causatively, abstinence-only education cannot. They also noted that there was this thing called the virginity pledge in certain parts of America. And what researchers found was that among sexually experienced youth who were re-pledging abstinence, 88% broke the pledge and had sex before marriage. So it just doesn't work. And all it does is it just continues to put them at risk, rather than educating them with the tools to actually, have safe sex. It just leaves them exposed to everything. It is just ridiculous how they just ignore this. Moving on, we have Sex Education, Funding Facts Not Fear from 2017, published in the Journal of Law Medicine. And I'm just going to say the author does not hold back on this. They tear right into everything. And at the end, they just outright state we need to seize all funding to abstinence-only education and put it into actual education that works, like comprehensive sex education. And last of all, we have sex and HIV education programs. Their impact on sexual behaviors of young people throughout the world, which should be noted, found that sex and relationship education is not culturally specific. These programs do work in other communities. I'm just going to drink a bit of water, actually. And I'm back. So yes, it's not culturally specific. These programs work throughout the world, and they help decrease HIV. So yeah, they remain effective when implemented by others in different communities, provided all the activities are implemented as intended in similar settings. And that's an important one as well, because even in places where there is an adoption of comprehensive sex and relationship education, sometimes you get people who, who just, they refuse. Teachers just refuse to teach what they're expected to teach. And that's just like incredibly irresponsible. And we need to come down on that and like realize that, no, this is not a allowable difference of opinion. You are genuinely putting your students at risk of health problems when you do this. So yeah, it's just, it is just amazing. I'm just reading through the comments, and I see that a lot of you, being utter nerds, have decided to compare condoms to armor in video games, which, okay, I should play the audience. I should know who I'm talking to. But yeah, I can see Levi's leading the way there. So yeah. Anyway, that is the rough breakdown of comprehensive sex and relationship education. I'm not going to go into every single detail. This is not a scripted video. But yes, I've put the resources down below. The advocacy one, the first one, reference 2, is quite short, quite easy to understand. It's there. It's what should I think? It's like a news report, like breaking down the information of the research, so it's easily accessible. It's great to have certain factoids about. The second one, reference 3, by Rachel Rubenstein, a little more comprehensive, but they are cracking out the references at a ridiculous rate. Half of the page is like taken up by reference because they do page by page referencing. Half of every page is taken up by referencing. They get like 2 small paragraphs in, and then the rest of the page is just referencing. The third one, which is the impact on sexual behaviors of young people throughout the world. Again, a bit more specific, but it's just pointing out that comprehensive sex and relationship education works anywhere. And that's an important fact to note, because I know that the moment they have to give in to the facts that this works, the next argument is going to be, well, it doesn't work in all communities, therefore certain communities need to be excluded. Not true. Okay, it's just not true. I can predict this shit, it's just not true. So yes, moving on back to the article. It continues with, quote, Stephanie Davies Aria, founder of the anti-trans organisation Transgender Trend, joined forces with the anti-LGBT plus priests at the parliamentary briefing. Davies said during the meeting that teaching children about gender identity disempowers all children by making them less confident of using the correct biological words to report abuse. She added, once boys and girls are defined as genders based on internal feelings and biological sex differences are deemed irrelevant, the inevitable result is erosion of any boundary between the sexes. Davies inexplicitly decided to turn her speech towards the idea of adult men using girls' toilets. The majority of the time, schools have separate toilets for children and adults. and the topic of bathroom use has nothing to do with SRE. She said, "Are girls expected to accept the presence of men who are sexually aroused by wearing women's clothing in their toilets and changing rooms? Mixed-sex facilities deny all children their right to privacy, comfort, and dignity." Ooh, okay. This is another reason I wanted to bring this up. This is a group Graham Linehan supports, and they are quite happy tossing their hat in the ring to work alongside just total conservative Christian bigots. That's kind of an important thing to note. Anytime someone says Transgender Trend isn't a hate organization, they just want to get their opinion out. It's like, point to this. Show people what takes place here. Show them that no, that's just ridiculous. Quite clearly, it is a hate organization, and they are happy to work with anyone who is targeting LGBT plus people across the spectrum, not just trans people, lesbian, gay, bisexual people, and all the other identities as well. As for the topics of discussion here, again, everything stated without basis. If, the way that comprehensive sex and relationship education worked did this, then we'd expect to see a decrease in said sexual abuse between children, because they wouldn't be reporting it, because they wouldn't feel confident to report it. But that's not what we see. We see an increase, because they are reporting it more often, even though it likely hasn't actually increased in prevalence. We don't know how extensive child-on-child abuse is, and we probably don't know how extensive child abuse is. But they don't care about that. They see an opportunity to propagate their bigotry, and no matter how damaging it actually is to these people, the people they pretend to care about, they're going to take it. As for the bathroom myth, as the article notes, adults and students have different bathrooms. The first time I ever saw a teacher or lecturer in a bathroom was when I went to college. That was my head teacher, the headmaster of the college I went to. He didn't wash his hands. And I had a ceremony next in which I had to accept a certificate. And I saw all the people he was shaking hands with. That was fun. Anyway, Transgender Trend is just a hate group that routinely promotes pseudoscience along with general anti-LGBT plus information. They released a pack for schools, which again dresses itself up in very, it seems authentic. These groups are very good at doing that. They dress up their stuff in a sort of authentic, almost respectable way, and they sneak in their bigotry that way. Unsuspecting teachers who are just trying to do the right thing think, oh, this pack is about, teaching transgender issues in school, not realizing that it's about teaching anti-trans hate in school. Again, they're targeting children. They also work with various bigots, people who work with fascists, who accept fascist money, notably from the Heritage Foundation, a far-right Christian organization in the US. They're also just using the same arguments once used against lesbian, gay, and bisexual people to exclude trans people. Anyone who was around for Section 28 should, remember these arguments, or even in the wake. These are the arguments that are used against, they still are in some places, as with Andrew Moffat in Parkfield, to argue that gay teachers need to be banned from schools because they're a danger to children. All they've done is they've taken that old, tired argument, repackaged it to trans people, and just thrown it out there. And this was just allowed to continue. It's just laughable. It would be laughable if it weren't so infuriating. The article went on to state that, quote, former BBC journalist Shelley Charlesworth also attended to lash out at the LGBT plus inclusive education program, No Outsiders, which she branded inappropriate adult material imposed on children who are not developmentally equipped to understand it. Now, I've actually covered the No Outsiders program. I can actually do this. Once I said I need to do a review of this when my order arrives, and someone was like, I don't think someone in India is, all that interested in No Outsiders. It's like, actually, I went ahead and I ordered it. I went through this. And what's my opinion on it? There's not a whole lot about LGBT plus people. This actually covers the the Equalities Act 2010. It's based on that, so it covers every protected category. It covers our rights and responsibilities, and everything is age appropriate. You can read through and you can see like the beginning discussions are very simple. Just basic respecting, and then it like increases in complexity over the years as students go through, sort of thing. Like one of the basic ones for kindergarten, like before year one, is that the topics before year one are to say what I think, to understand that it's okay to like different things, to make friends with someone different. To understand that all families are different, to celebrate my family. That's the first year of teaching stuff. Nothing inappropriate there. Year one, to like the way I am, to play with boys and girls, to recognise that people are different ages, to understand that our bodies work in different ways, to understand that we share the world with lots of people. Year one, heavily inappropriate. Year two, to understand what diversity is, to understand how we share the world, to understand what makes someone feel proud, to be proud of being different, to be able to work with everyone in my class. That's year two. This is year three. Oh, this is where it gets really bad. To understand how difference can affect someone, to understand what discrimination means, to find a solution to a problem, use strategies to help someone who feels different, to be welcoming. That last one, gay agenda. They're having us in gulag soon. Year four, to know when to be assertive, to understand why people choose to get married, to overcome language as a barrier, to ask questions, to be who you want to be. Can't allow that. Bodily autonomy. Can't allow that. Year five, to justify my actions, to recognise when someone needs help, to appreciate artistic freedom, to accept people who are different to me, to promote diversity. I went on. Promote diversity is actually year six. I just ran through that. So year six, to promote diversity, to stand up to discrimination, to challenge the causes of racism, to consider how my life may change as I grow up, and last of all, to recognise my freedom. So that's literally it. It talks about, in preface, the Equalities Act 2010. It just states that it's against the law to discriminate against anyone because of age, disability, gender reassignment, marriage and civil partnership, pregnancy or maternity, race, religion or belief, sex, sexual orientation. Now, I think I know what the problem is and why people who read this resource are like getting angry about it. The way this happens is each section is given like a lesson plan and how you can link it to different identities. Not all identities are appropriate to every lesson, but certain ones are. However, being a gay man, what Andrew links it back to is his own experience. And he says you can use this as a frame and you can apply it to other identities and sort of like broach the topic in this sort of appropriate manner. So people assume that it's just like it's the whole book about sexuality, where no sexuality is used as the basic template. Moffat is talking about equality from a standpoint, and he says like take these lessons and apply it to everything else in the book. So that's what No Outsiders was about. That's what we've had, this fucking, can I curse on stream? That's what we've had all this about, been happening in Birmingham, and that was it. That was the questions covered by no outsiders, the inappropriate nature that this former BBC hack is harping on about. So now you know the truth. So yes, I should note that Andrew Moffat is not one tone when it comes to his lessons, because that's another thing people might say. Oh, well, he's a gay man, so we can only teach about gay topics. Following Brexit, because Birmingham, the area that he comes from, has a high population of Muslims. Following Brexit, there was a lot of tears, there was a lot of upset. And Andrew Moffat, white guy, white British guy, I don't know if he's got any European in him, but he saw how it was affecting his children and their sense of value. So what he did is he booked out a field trip and he just took them around to different places in Birmingham, just to stores, etc. In places where corner stores, etc. Took them into the stores, talked to people were you born here? Did you come here? And just everyone talking about how they came to Britain, how they became British and all this. And by the end of it, the children were talking about how they felt much better in who they were. And they realised that people have come here from different places, from all walks of life, and they found their place, they found their legging, and that they're happy that they're a part of the community, and no matter your background, you can become that. So he's a lovely man. It's just a shame that this is a guy who did everything he could to help particularly the Muslims in his school, because Brexit was about Europe, but a lot of the rhetoric was targeted towards Middle Eastern people. He went out of his way to make those children feel like they meant something. And then to see parents, most of which didn't go to the school, come there and start tearing into him, saying he's a sexual abuser, he needs to be removed, etc. That's just the biggest fucking betrayal. Because it talks about families. There's children books in which children have two parents of the same gender. That's it. That's as inappropriate as it gets. But there's also books about children who are raised by their grandparents rather than their parents. There's books about disabled children. There's books about children with different ethnic backgrounds. But they just focused on that one aspect. It's like what happened in Texas with the Houston Equal Rights Ordinance, the Heroes Bill. Again, it was protecting all these demographics, but because it allowed trans people the right to access the gender spaces that aligns with their gender, that was targeted, it was scrapped, and it left a lot of people exposed, including veterans. So, don't believe the lies. You now know better. Excuse me. Also, there's a basic thing here that what's being asserted is that our existence is inappropriate. Which, if it is, then so are opposite gender couples and cisgender people, so we have to ban them and any stories about them from school as well. I'm just putting that out there. If you want to get rid of LGBT plus people because they're inappropriate, you have to get rid of cishets as well. Cishets as well, I should say. I do apologise. I hope I'm coming through loud and clear. Anyway, going back to the article, quote, Ed Matijazic, that took me a while to read that, head teacher of the primary school in the Isle of Wight, which is run with a distinct Christian ethos and currently only teaches matters relating to reproduction in humans, as RSE, described inclusive sex education as grooming. According to the Conservative Woman, he told the House of Commons, "We are in danger of instituting via RSE a national grooming program in primary schools. Obviously, the predator's aim is to abuse, but the sex education teaching process with the child is the same, whether that is the aim or not. Again, claims about predators coming from religious institutions which are historically, and let's be honest here, cesspools for predators of all kind, is kind of a long shot. There is nothing grooming about this education. The relationship part in comprehensive SRE teaches consent, teaches boundaries, teaches children that A, it's not appropriate for someone to do this without your permission, because again, as a child, I had no idea that what happened to me was wrong. I thought it was a game because my predator preyed on that ignorance. You know, like, you're not grooming children by making them aware of grooming. You're doing the exact opposite. You're equipping them to be aware of this. And as long as it's not done in a sort of fear-mongering fashion, because, yeah, there is a wrong way to do it that can make children terrified of everyone. But it's just important because there's so many like misconceptions as well. I remember one of my psychology lecturers discussing the facts that, you know, when making a call, sometimes we need to be a bit cautious, because they knew a case study of a young child who, every time the father entered the room, would jump onto the mother's lap. And a psychiatrist noticed this, started like looking into it, and came to the assumption that the child had seen the father abusing the mother and was like going onto the lap to either escape from the father or to protect the mother. And the father was actually forced to move out for a while as an investigation was going on. The mother was telling that that's not the case, but like they didn't believe her, because sadly that can happen. That sort of control can happen. Turns out that the child, just going through life, had walked in on. They were being babysat at one point by, I can't remember if it was a family member or family friend. One of their family members had been watching something inappropriate in his own room, and the little girl had walked in, and one of the friends had turned around because she could hear what was happening and see what was happening, and said, "That's what your father did to your mum." And of course, they were watching porn, as teenagers do. So a little girl walked in, teenage boys watching porn, and from that, took on the statement that that's what your father did to your mother, misread the situation with the moaning, and thought that the mother was being hurt by the father. So yes, they got to the bottom of that eventually, but like that sort of complication could easily be handled, because children are, you know, they'll be like, children don't understand these things. That's why we have education. Like it's mind-boggling, this idea that children don't understand these things. They're complicated things. Therefore, they need to be kept ignorant. Like, that's completely backwards. If they don't understand something and it's important for them to know because they are the targets of abuse, you need to teach them. It's actually an important thing to do. So, yeah. A Levi called Bird. Bird wishes he was taught about predators. Yeah, it's something that's incredibly important. And it doesn't have to be like gratuitous, graphic, or whatever. Just teaching basic boundaries and consent. You know, think about all the children in the fucking Catholic Church and the Anglican Church as well, because they are also a cesspool for this sort of thing. Think of all the children that could have been saved there. They don't care. They like throwing stones in glass houses. It's just... Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little distracted, and like it's infuriating to like continue to see this sort of thing. Quote, other speakers included Judith Nemeth of the Anti-LGBT+ Values Foundation, which claims to represent faith and traditional family values in education, and parent Jacqueline Corcoran, who claimed that her 4-year-old persistently asked for 2 mummies after taking part in the No Outsiders program. Now, I just want to pause here, and like, this sounds like a really bad jab, but that kind of makes you wonder how bad their father is. Here's the thing. I don't believe these stories. Like, when it comes to these sort of parents, you always find them. Whenever these like things rise up, you always find them. They always talk about, like, they fabricate, oh, my child's like looking in the mirror and starts screaming because they've been taught about this transgender thing. It's like, what's actually taught is that who you are inside is inherent. So as long as you feel like a girl, you're always going to be a girl. You're not going to look at a mirror and scream because I could become a boy. You know, they get things totally fucking backwards. And I see Adita. Adita's behind me, by the way. She's on the other side of this flag. She is enjoying the sofa because I use the AC to cool the room down. But yeah, like, oh fuck. Sorry. It's just, it's so frustrating. It's just the fact that they say this sort of shit. Also, children of single parents often ask for a father, because again, I don't know if this person is still married or whatever. Why not ask for an extra mother? Why does it have to be heteronormative? Why does it always have to be the case that, you know, can I have a father? Why can't it be that? Because it's possible that this woman is actually a single mother. I don't know, the article doesn't make clear. Either way, it's just a little thing, because again, I don't trust this account as far as I can throw her. Moving on, this is going to be the last section I'm going to read out. Quote, according to Transgender Trend, other than MP Jeffrey Donaldson, who chaired the meeting, just 2 MPs attended. They are named by the anti-trans group as Stephen Timms, Labour, and Danny Kruger, Conservative. However, Timms told Pink News, I looked in briefly at the start of this event because one of my constituents wanted to attend. I'm afraid I wasn't there long enough to form a view, but I don't expect mandatory RFC teaching to be harmful. Kruger and Donaldson did not respond to requests for comment. Now, after this, there is a big section, which we're kind of going to talk about here, because I don't want to just, like, repeat it. And that is about, like, the facts that this event, thankfully, there were only 3 MPs in attendance, the one who invited them and 2 others, and one of them left quite quickly. But the fact is, when this is organised, of course, they've got to have the employees, the people in the room, taking care of, like, the microphones and everything. And a number of them are LGBT+. And they've had this issue before, and there was a union that came down on this in the article. Did I note the name of the union? It's a trade union rep. So I should have the actual article open. I've had my notes open so far. But a trade union rep came in and was like, it's important that if you're going to have these anti-LGBT+ events, which, by the way, you shouldn't be having, it's important that LGBT+ people working at these places can opt out, because I can't imagine being in the situation where, hey, I think I've got equality and equal, like, rights thanks to the Equalities Act, and here I've got to host a conversation about how I'm a groomer, I'm a degenerate, I am, like, just everything wrong with the world. I couldn't imagine being in that sort of situation. But the fact is, this never should have happened. It never should have reached this far. Like, Transgender Trends, the Values Foundation, and I forget the third one that I talked about at the start. Scanning up. Oh, there's one other organisation I'm currently blanking on. Nuts. Anyway, the other group, which I forget their name, I think I got it in the description of, like, the chat, don't I? Oh, it was the Values Foundation. Never mind. For some reason I was double counting the Values Foundation. I apologise. But yeah, like, they are hate organisations. They should not have been invited in the first place. So the idea that it got to this point, it's vile. Like, we should not be platforming hate groups. I mean, could you imagine if it was a neo-Nazi white nationalist group coming and talking about the need to get rid of the degenerate people of colour, or the Jews? Then again, the Conservatives are in power and they can say all the anti-Semitic things they want and not get into trouble. Yeah, if the Labour leader associates with the wrong type of Jew, suddenly that's a big issue. But yeah, so that's really most of what I wanted to talk about. I don't know if there's any questions or points any of you would like to raise on the issue, but the truth is, it's just something that I wanted to document, that these people were given an official platform at the House of Commons, a government office, and employees who are LGBT+ weren't allowed to opt out. They had to work there as they listened to people saying the most dehumanizing things about them. And it's just, yeah. So, yeah, hopefully the show so far has gone well. Again, first planned show for this, regular planned show for the channel. I don't know if my reading was a bit rough. I don't know if you'd rather have the article on screen as I'm reading it out, if that would help certain people. I decided against it because, like, if I'm currently scrolling through and like you're reading at the same time, I think that can get quite annoying. Better to just have the article there at the start. That way you guys can, see it and read it as I talk. But yeah. Also, how glorious is my hair? I'm not shallow. I'm just asking. All of you have suddenly gone very silent. The chat's like suddenly stopped. It was like, it's beautiful. Thank you. My wife is yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Of course, recently we had the Labour Party, well, they're still going on, the discussions about the new leadership going on, and thankfully everything's been very progressive. I'm just going to turn this camera down a bit. I'm sorry, I'm getting lazy. I'm splooting. I'm getting lazy now. Thankfully, most of the Labour candidates, or at least the ones to take seriously, support trans rights. There was a bit of caveating. A Levi called Bird. Cult leader has wonderful hair. Yes, it is best hair. It is best hair. Oh, we're gonna start like Kim Jong Un and me, like with all these like rumors and myths. Mellors? What the hell is a melor? All these mellors? I will call my miracles. I will call my miracles mellors. Anyway, so yes, hopefully this has been an informative stream. Hopefully it gives you a bit of update with what's going on in the UK. Yeah. So I guess that's it. Most people are just talking about the hair now. That was a bad choice. I don't really see any questions, and I think I've said most of what needs to be said. I don't know. I don't have a schedule for how long these streams are going to be. I'm just going to take it and say what I want, say what I need to say, and that'll be it. Speaking of which, on Friday we of course have the stream covering Pig Puncher. People were wondering why I'm doing this first and that later. The fact is I had this planned. And Piggy isn't important enough to postpone this for. This needed to be covered. It's already late enough that I'm covering it, but I need to cover it. Yeah. So yeah, that's really what these streams are for. They're meant to cover. What's that word I'm looking for? They're meant to cover like either news stories, so time-oriented topics. I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for. Time-sensitive topics. That's probably the better one. Cover time-sensitive topics that I can't necessarily do a full plan video because I have an actual damn schedule to do. But it's also to cover certain topics that need covering but don't quite merit a video, as with Piggy this Friday. So yeah, and Andromeda, hey, I can't say your name. I need to
Adonanil.
Adoni... what?
Adonanil.
Adonial H. Is that it? Adonial H. I think I got it. Adonial H. Adonial H, can I join your D&D campaign? I don't know if you're like jokingly talking about D&D campaign, because have I got some news for you? I've actually been working on getting a D&D campaign started. No, I'm not joking about that, by the way. We're looking at it because there's two reasons for this. I'll see if I can change. I don't have a screen share set up at the moment. That's good. 1 second, I will do a screen share quickly. Window capture, video device capture, game capture. Oh god, display capture. Okay, yeah, that's what I want. Display capture. Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna throw that in there. Transition. So yeah, I've actually started getting some stuff ready to actually do a D&D stream, and the reason I'm planning on doing this is because what was it? I noticed that a lot of people were like saying it was nice to see a creative side of me. I am very extensively negative on my channel because of the topics I sadly deal with all the time. And so people are like, it's actually quite nice to see this like creative side to you. And then I remember talking to Casey Explosion, and it was sort of like she was talking about why it's important to her to like do gaming. My God, who I have none. She was saying that gaming was important to her because it teaches people that trans people are not just politics. We have interest, we are human, all this stuff. So yeah, it was interesting, and I thought, okay, I will do a D&D stream on here. If it's not your thing, just don't watch it. It's not a problem. But yeah, we are planning on doing one. Currently, I have 2 players down, conditional. One is my co-DM in real life, and the other is Levi. We're looking to do a more Eastern stream. So I noticed there's a lot of streams for UK and US. This one's for us Indian, Aussies, and everything in the East. So yeah, man, that's actually interesting. I don't know if someone told you that was happening, but yeah, so that is actually happening. But anyway, so I think this is a good place to end. I will see you the next couple of days. I've actually got to do some editing for this weekend's video, which is again on abortion access. It's another response to What Would You Say, which if you don't remember, the Dutch TERF I responded to sent me a video advocating conversion attempts. It was What Would You Say? But yeah. So anyway, take care. I shall see you on Friday first for the peace stream. And then this Sunday we are concluding the Monstrous Park one-shot, because yeah, it was just a one-shot planned for the weekend. Yeah, with that, thank you for turning up. You are all wonderful people. Thanks to Adonial H for your donation, and thanks to Jadis Tucker for your donation. It's a big help, just building up a legal fund. There will be more news about that later. I'm just currently waiting for the super chats to come through. So yes, take care, see you around. Remember, D and do your bit.